Okay, so here's a bit of a clue about how else your brain might calculate how upset you should be. Here's a little map of me when I'm doing something that I frequently do, which is to write a manuscript. So you might say, well, what are you doing when you're writing a manuscript? And that turns out to be a very complicated question. It's like, what are you doing when you read a book? Well, you're writing letters, or typing them. You're typing words, you're typing phrases, you're typing sentences, you're typing paragraphs, you're typing the structure that the paragraphs fit into. That would be the essay. Okay? Then me anyways, I'm practicing science because I usually write scientific manuscripts, and that's part of embodying my professorial role, and then that's part of, hypothetically, being a productive citizen, although some of you might, differ with that, given that I'm a professor. And then perhaps on the outside of that, or this is what I think is on the outside of that, is I'm confronting the unknown. And you might say, well, what are you really doing when you're writing a sentence? And the answer to that is you're doing all of these things better or worse. And if you're doing a really good job of writing a sentence, you're doing all of them at once. And that would be one of the things that would make the sentence particularly meaningful. Now, if something anomalous occurs, well, let's say the T on my typewriter gets stuck. Well, that's going to irritate me because then I can't type a sentence. Now, it's not going to irritate me too much because, it doesn't really interfere with my ability to be a productive citizen. So I'm going to estimate the magnitude of how upset I should be when something unknown occurs by estimating where in the hierarchy of action that anomaly is disruptive. Okay, so let me run you through this again. So let's say, what's a good person? And you might think of that from an objective perspective, but that would be a mistake. Because a quality like good is a pragmatic quality, and it's based on action, not on object. So here's how you decompose being a good person. So, a good person is a good parent. More than that, that's a subcomponent, right? A good parent is someone who has a job and takes care of their family. And then a person who takes care of their family is like, they can play with the baby or they can complete a meal. These are abstract concepts. You can't tell a 4-year-old, make a meal. And the reason you can't is because they don't know the subordinate components of making a meal. You can say, see that fork? Hopefully they know what a fork is. See that fork? Yes. Pick up that fork and bring that fork to the table and put it there. They can do that because their nervous system is organized enough to operate at that level of abstraction. But they can't do something like make a meal, which is, if you got a 3-year-old, you can't put them in their room and you say, clean up your room. They'll just look at you. And then when you come back in half an hour, they'll look at you again. You can say, hey, kid, see that teddy bear? Yeah. Pick up the teddy bear and put it on that space in the wall. And then once you teach the 3-year-old how to do 100 of those things, and they got it, they've got all the little motor routines, you can say, clean the room. You can encapsulate that entire set of motor routines within the higher order concept. So if you're being a good person, part of that is, well, maybe you're making a meal, and part of that would be, well, you're cutting up the vegetables. But then things get interesting, because when you're cutting up the vegetables, what you're actually doing is gripping something and moving, and then that's no longer abstract, right? That's where your conceptual, philosophical presuppositions, like be a good person, hit the level of embodied material reality. That's the dissolution of the mind into the body. Now, if someone says to you, you should cut those vegetables more thinly, that might irritate you. But if they say, you're a bad parent, maybe observing the same phenomena, then you're going to get into a fight with them. And the reason for that is, obviously, if it's just a matter of cutting the vegetables thinner, all you have to do is make a minor modification in the hierarchy that constitutes your self-representation, or really yourself. It's not just a representation. But if you're not a good parent, it's like, if that's true, you got a lot of repair work to do. A lot of your world has fallen apart. And as soon as things fall apart, which they always do, you're in chaos, and as soon as you're in chaos, then your body defaults to emergency preparation, and you're stressed, and if you're stressed long enough, then you die. And so you don't like that. Stress, when your body gets stressed, what happens is, because it doesn't really know what's going on, it prepares for everything. That's the generalized stress response. Cortisol production does that. Cortisol production is good. It wakes you up in the morning. But if it's chronic, you get old. Like, it's so general in its negative actions that the best way to conceptualize its detrimental long-term effect is that it accelerates aging. So it makes you more likely to have heart disease and cancer and depression and Alzheimer's and diabetes and obesity. That'll do. It's enough. Any of those are enough to kill you.